The sound of the envelope sliding across the wooden counter echoed in the room like a blade slicing through silence. Inside it were 5 names, people who had mysteriously vanished in the mountains between the small towns of Dubois and Lander, deep in the heart of Wyoming. They were seasoned hunters, forest guides, and hikers accustomed to the dangers of nature. None of them ever returned. My name is Elias Moreno, a descendant of indigenous peoples from northern Arizona. I've spent nearly my entire life tracking footprints others would rather ignore, hunting clues the forest hides from those too afraid to listen to its whispers. But on the day I was called into that cold federal office in Cheyenne, I sensed something different in the air, a silent weight no official report could disguise. The department director, Mara Kingston, didn't offer a welcome. She merely pushed the sealed envelope toward me. Its cover was creased, marked by the hands of someone who had hesitated before passing it on. Inside, faces, dates, and coordinates. People who had disappeared in the heart of the mountains, in a remote stretch of the Wind River Range, a place locals described with the same reverence given to a forgotten graveyard. "You'll go in alone," Kingston said, her voice low but firm. "Officially, you're conducting environmental research." When I questioned the reasoning, her gaze froze me. "Stay off the marked trails." She didn't explain why. She offered no assurances. She merely left the warning hanging in the air like thick smoke that refused to dissipate. As I left, the hallway felt colder than when I'd arrived. Orders like that are never given by chance. When they tell you not to follow the map, it's because something that shouldn't exist has been seen. The road to the Wind River Range winds as if it wants to expel anyone who dares cross it. With every mile, the trees closed in, the shadows swallowed the light, and silence replaced human voices. The last radio signal faded before I even passed the rusted National Park sign. The only sounds left were the hum of the car's engine and the crunch of gravel beneath the tires. The sky seemed motionless. Snow melted slowly along the road's edges, and the wind carried a heavy silence, typical of places where nature is alert, not asleep. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't welcome you. It merely watches. When I reached the small park outpost, Samuel Crow, a middle-aged forest ranger, was waiting on the wooden porch. His face looked carved from stone, rigid, weary. His eyes belonged to someone who had seen more than they should and carried the weight of every image. "Moreno?" he asked, without offering a handshake. He turned and led me to a room where a large map covered the entire wall. Red dots marked a narrow canyon, like open wounds on paper. 3 different groups disappeared here, he whispered. Entire families, a film crew, prepared people, all vanished within a 2-mile radius. I touched one of the markers and noticed he watched them as if staring at a ghost. I asked about tracks, footprints, signs of animals. He averted his gaze and answered in a voice barely audible. "We found marks. Half looked like hooves, the other half, human." The silence that followed wasn't ordinary. There was no wind, no song of a single bird, not even the distant sound of water. It was an absolute void, the kind the forest only reveals when it's listening to something we can't hear. Crow went pale. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I focused. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. "That's exactly it," he replied, barely moving his lips. "Here, when the forest goes quiet, it's not by chance." As the afternoon fell, I headed alone toward Silas Canyon. The air grew thinner and sharper, carrying the damp scent of pine and melting ice. The landscape was too beautiful to inspire trust. When everything looks too perfect, the forest is hiding something. The sound of my boots crunching on cracked ice echoed too far, as if the hills themselves were returning my fear in the form of an echo. Silence followed me like a shadow. Until, at the top of a granite-covered plateau, I saw something that made my entire body stiffen. A dark stain crossed the stone. The color was unmistakable, old, but not ancient. I followed the trail with my flashlight. The surrounding vegetation was torn, the moss ripped away, the earth disturbed as if something, or someone, had been dragged into the woods. That's when I saw the tracks. At first, they looked like elk prints. But when I knelt, my heart raced. The front of the track was pointed like a hoof, but the back resembled a human foot, a stride too long for any creature we know. Something that shouldn't exist was walking there, and it was doing so with confidence. The forest grew quieter still, and when the wind vanishes, you know you've stayed too long. As I followed the trail, the natural light began to fade behind the mountains. The dusk enveloped the path like a heavy curtain, and the temperature plummeted fast. Each step seemed to pull me further from the civilized world and push me into something the forest wanted to hide. The trail led me to an old ranger shelter, half hidden among tall pines and twisted trunks. The structure was leaning, as if the earth itself were trying to swallow it back. The wood creaked in the sharp wind, and the windows were covered in a thin layer of dust, as if no one had entered in years. When I pushed the door open, the air that escaped smelled damp and heavy, mixed with rust and memories of something that didn't want to be remembered. I lit my flashlight and spread the documents I'd brought onto the table. 5 faces, 5 interrupted stories, smiling faces frozen in time, unaware that it would be their last day in those mountains. I plotted the coordinates on the map. Lines began to form, not chaotically, but precisely, perfectly. A circle. And at its center, a name nearly erased by time. Hollow Wind Cave. Closed since 1998. Circles don't appear by chance. Animals don't hunt with rulers. That was chosen. Then the wind slammed against the side of the cabin, hard, as if something were pushing the structure from outside. Instinctively, I turned off the light. The silence returned, but now it felt different. There was weight in it. Something was moving outside, not the light steps of a small animal. It was something dragging weight across the leaf-covered ground, and it was close. The sound stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it, but the chill that ran up my spine confirmed it wasn't imagination. When I relit the flashlight, the beam trembled as if the light itself were afraid to be there. The next morning I set out earlier. I followed the old markings on a topographic map I found hidden in the cabin's walls. The cave's entrance was concealed behind a landslide of moss-covered rocks, a narrow crevice, just wide enough for one person to slip through sideways. It felt like stepping into the throat of a sleeping giant. As soon as I set foot inside, the temperature plummeted. The air was heavy, damp, and carried a metallic scent, almost like rusted iron mixed with wet earth. Every breath echoed against the walls as if someone were breathing with me. The flashlight's beam revealed corridors that didn't match any official map. It was as if the mountain had grown wrong, twisted tunnels, impossible branches, and marks on the stone that looked like they were made by hands or claws. Soon, I found the first trace, a torn backpack in the middle of the corridor, with marks that weren't from teeth or blades. It was something cruder. Nearby, a crushed boot, still shaped like the foot of someone who never left. And then, further ahead, bones. Small ones at first, then larger, mixed with scraps of faded blue fabric. The dust around them was warm. That didn't make sense. The air was freezing, but the ground, it seemed to pulse with something alive. Then I heard it. A low, wet sound coming from the depths of the tunnel. It wasn't dripping water. It was irregular, slow, breathing. The flashlight's beam danced on the ceiling. As I raised it forward, I saw the main chamber. Broken equipment, destroyed film cameras, torn backpacks, and a neatly stacked pile of bones. None of it looked like a random attack. It was intentional, as if something were building a nest. A shadow darted across the edge of the light. The air seemed to stop. The flashlight flickered twice and weakened. The darkness took shape, and that shape was breathing with me. I felt its warmth right behind me, as if my own shadow had lungs. I didn't sleep that night. Every crackle in the brush outside the cabin seemed closer. Every leaf that moved carried the same heavy silence I'd found inside the cave. When dawn broke, I knew my only chance was to find and face whatever was there before it found someone else. I chose an elevated spot near Fremont Lake, an old hunting ground with a wide view and good cover. I set up sensors, cameras, tranquilizer spears, and a thermal drone. I waited. The sun vanished behind the mountains like a curtain closing the final act. The silence began to spread like a virus. First the crickets stopped, then the wind, then everything. The kind of silence the forest only allows when something bigger is coming. Then I saw it. A shape too tall to be a bear, with long, inverted limbs. Its uneven skin gleamed under the moonlight, like something that hadn't yet decided what body it wanted to inhabit. Its neck moved slowly, but its eyes glowed with intelligence. It wasn't a lost animal. It was a predator that knew the terrain better than I did. I pulled the trigger. The first tranquilizer dart grazed it. The creature twisted in an impossible way, vanishing into the lake's darkness without a single sound. No ripples, no splash, just silence. Again. I returned the next night, this time, fully prepared. The drone flew overhead, detecting heat. I activated a collar mimicking the sounds of an injured prey, a simple trick to lure predators. It worked. A shadow slithered between the trees, dragging one leg, wounded from the previous shot. The thermal sensors picked up its body heat before I could see it with my own eyes. I fired again, and again. The dart hit its mark, The roar that echoed through the mountains shook the ground. The creature collapsed, slamming against a pine trunk. Its breathing was labored, wet, like something that shouldn't be alive. It went still, but its eyes never closed. For a moment, the forest froze in time. The creature's body lay sprawled on the leaf and ice-covered ground, motionless, but the sense of danger still hung in the air like electricity after a storm. I wasn't breathing right, not because of the cold, but because of the invisible weight pressing on my chest. I aimed the flashlight at its face, or at least, what resembled a face. It was a shapeless blend of animal features and something disturbingly human. Its antlers curved backward like twisted branches. Its skin was uneven, mottled, and beneath its sparse fur, I could see the bone structure moving, alive, even though it was still. I approached slowly. No hunter, no matter how experienced, had seen something like this and lived to tell the tale. I cautiously reached out, touching the cold surface of its neck. There was still a pulse, weak, slow, but present. The drone still hummed faintly above, its camera showing the creature's body heat, a lone hot spot in a vast, icy expanse. But then, something chilled me to the core. Another heat signature appeared on the screen, then another, and another. It wasn't just one creature. The forest ahead of me began to breathe. Shadows moved among the pines. 1, 2, 5, maybe more. At first they seemed distorted by the trees, but then I realized they were coming. None of them made a sound. They just came, as if silence were their language. I took a step back, reloading the weapon, but I knew I didn't have enough ammunition for all of them. I took a deep breath. In moments like these, time doesn't flow. It stretches. Every second is an eternity compressed in your chest. The first shadow crossed the edge of the spotlight's beam. Its legs bent in ways contrary to a human's, as if molded by mistake. Its eyes, yes, they all had the same eyes, glowed in an almost hypnotic amber. Behind me, the fallen creature opened its eyes. There was no roar, no immediate attack, just a look. As if they were all studying me, calculating. Whatever they were, they didn't act like animals. They weren't hungry. They were protecting something. That's when I realized that cave wasn't just a shelter. It was a nest. The fallen creature let out a hoarse, deep sound that reverberated through the forest, like a call. And the others responded, not with cries, but with synchronized steps, as if a collective intelligence guided their every move. I could have fired. I could have tried to run. But any shot would mean open war, and I knew the forest wasn't on my side. I took 2 steps back, never breaking eye contact. Retreating wasn't cowardice, it was survival. When I reached the road, the wind returned, carrying the sound of the pines. The silence was gone. The creatures retreated into the forest like shadows melting into the darkness. They didn't attack me. They didn't need to. The message was clear. I had invaded their territory, and I left alive because they allowed it. Back at the motel, I locked the door with everything I had. The smell of dust and old wood had never felt so safe. I opened my laptop and activated the emergency thermal scanner. I reviewed the drone's footage, and there they were. The circle, the nest, and over 10 heat signatures hidden beneath the ground. It wasn't an isolated legend. It was a colony. I picked up the phone. The sheriff's line was dead. I tried Director Kingston's number. Busy. It was as if, suddenly, no one wanted to hear about it anymore. Then I heard a sound at the window. A soft tap, like nails brushing against the glass. Slowly, I turned my head. Outside, only 2 amber eyes stared at me, motionless, inches away. When I blinked, they were gone. The truth is, no one ever spoke openly about what lives in the woods between Dubois and Lander, because admitting it would open a door that can never be closed. They've always been there, waiting, watching, and now they know someone saw them. And the most terrifying part? The tracks weren't heading into the forest anymore. They were heading toward the town.